Do you ever get that strange feeling at night that you're being watched?
Or maybe you heard a noise in the woods you can't explain.
What is the truth about UFOs? And where are the ones that have crashed?
Every week, join husband and wife duo Felicia and Ian as we seek the truth. Recording in the mountains of the Appalachians, we, the paranormal lovers, will bring you stories of hauntings, cryptids, UFOs, and more.
You can find us on iHeart, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and most other podcast services. Follow us on Instagram and YouTube by searching for The Paranormal Lovers in the search bar.
Hi there, welcome to Not Your Average Goat. I'm your host, Teisha Gillespie, and this is a show that celebrates all the shapes, sizes, and colors of diversity as well as adversity. Through authentic conversations, we hope to have an impact on dismantling societal stigma while creating a place for relatable storytelling. I'm an introvert. That's something that I've struggled with identifying with for so long because I think that there's like a societal expectation that everyone must be extroverted. Otherwise, you are not worthy of acceptance. You're not worthy of being just normal. And I think that there's also this other thing that being introverted means that, oh, you must be always quiet, you must be always shy, when that's not the reality. Being introverted, and at least for myself, means I rejuvenate, I get my energy from being by myself and being in quiet spaces. It does not necessarily mean that I don't like being around other people. It just means that I do not energize from being in big crowds. Like being in big crowds steals my energy. And so I can only be in those situations for maybe 2 days in a row. That's kind of my limit.
You're kind of just trudging through and you're like, look, man, all I want to do is just go home.
Exactly.
All I want to do is just go home. I don't want to do this. I don't need to.
Again, it has nothing to do with me not wanting to be around people. After a certain time, I actually need to be around people. It's just the quantity that I'm around people. So it's just, hey, yes, I can do this for 2 hours. After these 2 hours, I need a day by myself. And then maybe I can give you another 2 hours after that.
Exactly. And I can't even guarantee that second round of 2 hours. It may be an hour and a half. You may have 45 minutes. I'm not even sure yet, but I definitely need some time to myself, like you said, to rejuvenate and to just, get back in the space of, okay, I'm ready to tackle this next thing. So one of the things, as a music artist that you have to, always factor in is, performances, going to, book the show, having everything ready for the show, getting there and getting back and everything in between, right? So when I go to perform, I have always been, even when I first started performing on stages in front of crowds, I had always been the type of performer. I'm going to go out on stage and I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to give you guys everything that I have to make this a fantastic show while I'm on stage. And as soon as I am done, I will come down, shake a few hands, take a few pictures, network with, this person here, that person there. And I'm out of here in the next 15, if not 20 minutes. And I'm gone for the rest of the night. Like the show's not even over. Show's not even half over. And I came, did my thing, shook a few hands, took a few pictures, did my thing that I'm supposed to do as an artist. And I'm out of here.
We're going to get into your journey in a little bit. And, people who don't yet know, Kaesevyn is a holistic musical artist. But I think that that's probably a misconception that maybe most people have, is that, if you're an actor, if you're a musician, if you're a comedian, that you are just automatically an extrovert. And it's almost as if you should have one day for the performance and then another day just to do the meet and greet so that you can really be there for the fans.
Right. But the unfortunate thing, is that a lot of this industry is based on, convenience, honestly. What's convenient for the venue owners, what's convenient for, the riggers, the engineers, the musicians that are coming up on stage with you, the DJ, the bouncer, even the patrons, it's really a lot of it really is based on convenience. So, you'll have some nights, you'll have some shows, that you go do where it's nothing against the people who, especially the ones who've paid money to come see you. It's nothing against them. It is absolutely, wonderful that you took time out of your schedule and you took money out of your wallet, your hard-earned money to come see me perform. And that is something that I could never be more grateful for and more honored about. But at the same time, just on a personal level, it's one of those situations for me where I'm going to give you, like I said, I'm going to give you my all as an artist, as a performer. But once I've given you my all, that's what I've got. Anything beyond that, and I'm really grasping at straws, or I'm really, for lack of better phrasing, I'm really pulling it out of my ass. And then that's disingenuous for, everyone in attendance who came to see you. It's a struggle really to find that balance of how do I get the rest and, revitalization that I need, and also be who I need to be for these people who have come to see me perform and do my thing and, want to support me in my career.
I hear you on that. And social media, for all its criticism, I think is an amazing way for artists, especially like you, to engage, because you can kind of do it behind the scenes. You can kind of do it on your own time when you have the energy to engage with your fans. And you and I actually met on a new platform called Threads, which is still gaining traction, but it's just, I've honestly felt like it's been a breath of fresh air, and it's been so introvert friendly. And engaging with you and other people, it's just been so nice, and to actually have this like real human interaction that you don't necessarily get from other platforms like Instagram or Facebook. I think you and I, like, we found a common thread, we engaged, we had a conversation, and then within a week or so, we were actually talking in person over Zoom. And that's just like almost unheard of on other platforms, to actually know the people that you're interacting with.
Threads for me, it's done wonders, I feel like, for my networking abilities, because I've, made a lot of great relationships, based off of, just finding, posts, just finding people who've shared something and, hey, you've got this going on, I've got this going on. If you've got some time, if you've got some availability, I'd love to figure out a way that, we can help each other. And the approach is just, it's so phenomenal for me, because a lot of people are setting themselves up, professionally. And, in this industry, you would think that professionalism is kind of like a cornerstone of it, but, in my personal experience, it's kind of not. So getting on Threads and being able to talk with people, being able to interact and schedule and actually participate in, in some of these great things, to me, it, like you said, it's an extreme breath of fresh air. It kind of goes along with like the art of perception, right? So, you see on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everyone shares a photo, everyone shares a video of something, and you've got to make it this big grandiose thing so that way it captures people's attention, they stop scrolling for a little bit. Threads, on the other hand, is more so everything behind the curtain, so to speak. And I feel like that's what I love a little bit more about platforms like Thread, where I can just engage and I can just interact with this person or this organization directly and be able to actually talk to someone, right? Like there's an actual person behind this screen, behind this profile that I'm talking to, that I actually get to speak with and say, hey, this is what I want to do, and this is what I see you're doing. Is there a way that we can possibly work together and come up with something? I couldn't be more grateful for the opportunity, to join, a platform like Thread and, and be able to meet someone, so lovely as yourself.
I'd love to kind of understand a little bit more about going back to young Kaesevyn.
Mhm.
Where did you grow up, and what did home and family look like for you?
So I was born in Parma, Ohio, and I've been raised in the city of Cleveland virtually all my life. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, but it wasn't, gloomy skies and rain clouds either. It was just, very middle of the road. We had our ups and downs, same as any other family. As far as, like my family dynamic, that's interesting because in my household, it was always, what my dad said goes. And my mom would either, support him on it or argue with him. And if she'd argue with him, then he'd realize he was wrong, but then he wouldn't apologize until hours later. But then I just kind of always figured, okay, well, that's just dad. He's just being him. Growing up, I would say round about maybe like 10 or 11 or so, was when I really started to come into, who I was as a person or who I wanted to be. And then also at the time, and I'm pretty sure others have this experience as well, but it's also around that time, you start getting bullied by your older siblings because they've got nothing better to do. So between being bullied and, just trying to figure out, who I want to be and what I want to do with the rest of my life, I had just always kind of kept in the back of my head that, what I'd really like to do is just, I'd like to help people, or I'd really like to be the center of attention, but like not vain, not facetious, just I want to be known for something. I don't really know what it is. I could be a writer. I could be, someone who makes songs. I could be an actor. I could, go out and try to play a sport. I'm not that good, but I can try. But then, I did settle down and say, hey, music is for me. And let's see how far this can go. One of the best memories actually of, being a kid for me was, going on like long car trips, don't know where we're going, not really caring because the music, that mom or dad's playing is, dude, this is so awesome. Who is this? You know what I mean? Dad, can you play that one song again? Mom, can you play that again? I really like that, So I think the love for music and the appreciation for it had just always been there. And, it was just a thing of, I kind of want to do this. And I think now that I'm much older and I'm actually doing it, it's a whole like 5 or 10 levels different kind of appreciation for it, because now I'm, doing exactly, what I was listening to as a kid.
Like, what continued that passion for you? I guess, kind of like, what was your first kind of like personal or independent experience with music?
So the first time I had ever decided that I was going to pick up and try to make a song in any capacity. This was back in 2010, maybe like late 2009, one of the two. But there was a song by Nicki Minaj called Massive Attack. And at the time, I really, really, really enjoyed that track. And I enjoyed, everything about it, the words, the cadence, the everything, the beat, the people that she had on there with her. And I said to myself, I said, maybe I could do this. If they can do something like this, and I, am so inquisitive about doing it myself, maybe I should. So I went on to YouTube and I found the instrumental for the song, and I used a YouTube video ripper to get the beat and throw it through a program called Audacity. And then I remember having like an old school like microphone, nothing crazy, nothing like a studio microphone, just something where if you were going to be, on a video call or something like that, your webcam didn't have a microphone built in, so you had a standalone mic. So I would get that, plug it in, and just, try to write something down and turn the beat on, hit record, and, try my best at it. And from there, it got a little bit easier every time I tried to write and to find, better songs, better instrumentals to just kind of, write something to, and just, try my hand at making music. What really drove home the priority for me to make this a career choice, unfortunately, in 2010, right when I decided to, pick up music and really, try to run with it, my dad had passed away. And so my picking this up for, just hobby purposes, just to say like, yeah, I can do it, it quickly turned into a coping mechanism, almost therapy for me. And then I slowly realized, over the years, well, that's what a lot of people did. They took their tragedy, they took their pain, they took their grief, and made songs out of them. If for no other reason, than to get it off their chest, to help with their grieving. So all of this time later, I'm still finding myself, in different stages, different situations where, I do think back on the days of right when, I first started making music, and it's still kind of fueling me to this day, not necessarily, the grief of loss or anything like that, but just, being able to tell people or just talk about, what I feel or what I think. One of the downsides of, me growing up, I mentioned earlier that it was, it was always my dad's say. It was always, what he said goes and everything like that. I genuinely did grow up in a household where you didn't get a say. There was no conversation, there was no negotiating, no debating of any kind. It was my dad's rule, and that was it. And if you wanted to argue, fine, you can argue, but that argument is going to cost you a whooping. It's going to cost you some kind of discipline, some kind of punishment. And I didn't, I didn't really internalize it in a way that hindered me from being who I was or trying to figure out, who I wanted to be. But I have seen at times, as I grew up without my dad in my life, just how much that affected me with, my decision making, with, just being social with people, interacting with things, and even, with my music. I do have a very what is it? I do have a problem, I will call it, when I'm trying to get out of my way and work with others, in a collaborative effort. I've been making music for so long. I've been trying to do all of this by myself for so long that at times I genuinely do forget how to work with people and how to let others have a say. And I find that in those situations where, oh, geez, you're acting like that again, I kind of, I kind of hide back in my turtle shell a little bit. And I stopped trying to be the leader, and I stopped trying to be at the forefront, and I stopped trying to be the center of attention just for the sake of, hey, I really want this collaborative effort to work. I really want this to, be something greater than what I can make it by myself. And I can't do that if I'm going to continue to get in the way.
How old were you when your father passed?
I was turning 14 that year. It made me feel like I couldn't trust the older generation in my family. So my father was in he was in a diabetic coma for 8 months. I knew that his health was deteriorating. I didn't know how fast. And the entire time he was in hospice, my mom, my aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone who knew what was going on with my dad, they're feeding me the same line, oh, he's going to be okay. He's going to get better. Just talk to him, just this, just that. And at 14 years old, no one ever explained to me that hospice, for all intents and purposes, hospice is comfort care. They're not, you're not really in hospice for, right, like life-saving, life-changing kind of, care or like a medical regimen or anything. This is where you go when there is nothing else to do, but there's still time, so to speak. For me, it was painful, because I had felt, coming out on the other side of my dad's passing, I felt that up until that point, everyone had lied. He wasn't getting better. He wasn't, going to be okay. Well, I felt at 14, well, why wouldn't you just tell me that? I mean, in hindsight now, I can understand exactly why you wouldn't tell a 14-year-old boy that his father is dying. But, at the time, in those moments, to me, it felt better to know, so that way I could have been prepared. You know what I mean? I mean, you're never really prepared to lose anyone, but I felt I could have been better equipped to deal with the fallout that came from his passing. I could have dealt with, grieving, over my dad. I could have dealt with what my dad was going through physically. I could have dealt with all of it better had someone just told me, hey, he's on his way out. And for a long time, I held that against my family, because I had always felt like, well, you knew and you just didn't say anything. To me at that time, well, that's lying. You're basically lying to me. You could have just told me that he wasn't going to be okay, that he wasn't going to get better. The doctors told you, right? Everyone a part of his care team told you. Everyone, knows what's going on except me or except us. Again, now I'm at a point in my life where I understand that you don't tell a 14-year-old that their parent's dying. There is no way to ensure emotionally that this 14-year-old is going to be able to handle it, especially considering that this 14-year-old is already going through emotional difficulties all on his own. And then you add, loss into the equation, it could take him over the edge. You know what I mean? But I do sit back and think sometimes, how different would I be now if someone did tell me then that my dad was dying, instead of just telling me that it was going to be okay.
Understanding potentially why certain things were done certain ways, and also in other situations, knowing that things should have been done very differently. And so I'm curious to know from you, you, especially in your most recent album, the one that I've listened to, you've explicitly talked about some of the trauma surrounding the passing of your father, and, talking about, some of the hurt around feeling as if you were lied to, and also some of the hurt watching your mom like die herself every day after his passing. And so even though you can understand and kind of put yourself in the shoes of your mother and your aunts and anyone else who may have been involved, do you feel as if you might have been robbed of certain moments because you didn't know, and maybe you would have acted differently or made different decisions if you had known?
For lack of better phrasing, it fucking sucks. But I also feel that, at least with my mom's passing, I had learned enough from my dad passing and what I went through personally with that experience. I learned that it's always better to not sugarcoat a situation like that. I would so much rather and I was the one, with my mom to take her to her doctor's appointments when she had hospital stays, and, when things were going on with her medically, I was the one talking with the doctors and the nurses and the caretakers. But I was always the one to, look the doctor in the eye and say, hey, doc, give it to me straight. What are we looking at? Don't don't sugarcoat it. Don't try to make me feel good about this. I'm not a little kid anymore. So do me a favor, treat me like I'm an adult, treat me like I understand what you've got to say, and don't try to, sweeten the pot for me. Just, let me know what's going on with her health. So my mom had end stage renal disease, which for those that don't know is just, your kidneys specifically are close to shutting down. And then once they do, dialysis and transplants, unless it's an emergency situation, they don't work. There's really no coming back from it. So, getting the information and the education from the doctors about, what's really going on with mom and her situation, it helped me keep abreast and keep in the forefront of my mind what I need to be aware of, what I need to be on the lookout for, and how prepared do I need to be, so that way I don't fall into the same patterns and the same behaviors that I did when my dad passed. Not just her, but then just, being on the receiving end of, I'm not going to have my other parent for much longer. Just being better equipped to deal with all of that in the long run. And then this album, making it and finally getting to release it to let people into my life was extremely cathartic, because I never really delved into my life like that, other than, just personal conversations with people. I wanted people to know that, I'm tired of holding on to all of the things that, have caused me all of this trauma and all of this pain in my life. So I want to let you guys in on, why am I this way? Why am I acting like this? Why do I talk like this? Why do I walk? Why do I do half of what I do? Well, it's because of all of this. And in this industry, in this world, it's very hard to come to terms with, I'm going to put myself out there regardless of whether or not I'm going to be judged for it. It's extremely hard, because sometimes you feel like people don't care. You feel like people aren't going to get it. Or even if they do get it, you feel like they're going to turn on you and, make you out to be, oh, you just want some attention. You just want this. You just want that. And for me, the response that I got in the first 2 weeks of the album release was just, to me, it took me over the top, because I didn't really think that people cared like they said they did. I was always, kind of skeptical of everybody. So when I had people calling, my cell, telling me what they thought about the album and, actually genuinely checking up on me, it was kind of not heartbreaking, but it was such a relief that I genuinely didn't know you guys cared that much about me. So it kind of makes me sad that, like, I've kept y'all at arm's length all this time, when I could have let you in a long time ago, and I would have been accepted then, and I'm accepted now. So now we're just I'm trying to navigate how to not necessarily top the album, but how do I keep the authenticity going? How do I remain myself without falling victim to what's trending now and what's more popular and this and that? How do I continue to navigate being myself in an industry that's changing literally week to week?
Hello, my name is April, and I'm the host of the history podcast, Door Key. Door Key is 2 words, door and key. It's a play on the word dorky, which is really fitting because I'm a dork who loves to talk about history and random events and people from history. So come join me as I dive into these events and people. From Ötzi the Iceman to Studio 54, I cover it all in a way that's easy to consume. Get ready to hear a new and different perspective and gain a deeper understanding of the past while having some fun along the way. Welcome to Dorky. You can find and subscribe to Dorky anywhere you listen to podcasts, and Dorky is on all social medias as Dorky Pod, so be sure to check all of that out as well. Talk to you soon, friends.
I love the name of your album too, Underground Heart, because I think firstly, it's such a great name. Secondly, it's such a great representation, I think, of what folks can expect to uncover by listening to the album, because you're really letting people in to see usually what I call the story behind the story. It's very spot on. It's the underground. It's, what you don't see by looking at Kay. Like what the things you can't understand about you just from those like initial interactions. It's this deep dive into so much. And I think, how you have become who you are, and a lot of that being dark times. You're very vulnerable, and I think that's what makes your music so beautiful, is that you just lean into the raw, dark, vulnerable, painful moments, and you express it. But knowing who you are today, it also tells me that you never, or at least you've come to a point where you don't let those moments in time define who you are today. I learned so much about you in those like 60 minutes or so listening to your album. It was just very eye-opening for me. And, thinking about, like I said, you talked very explicitly about your experience with your father and your mother, but then, behind the scenes, you kind of implicitly talked about depression and addiction and disingenuine relationships and heartache. And, I'm just curious to know kind of, how do all these different parts of Kaesevyn come together? And, not that we necessarily need to dive into your entire life story, because we might be here for hours potentially talking about that. But like what are kind of like the main things that stick out to you when you think about your journey from, maybe it starts in 2010, like what are those big moments for you that stick out getting to where you are today? Like what were those adversities that you had to overcome?
The biggest things, the primary things that planted the seeds for my growth into the person that I am now today, it truly is, and they truly are like the dark, more traumatic, points of my life. One of the big things that I tend to talk about, and I don't even realize it in my music, is, like you said, disingenuous relationships with people. The first time I was ever like heartbroken over a girl, I pined after her for a year and a half of my life. Halfway through I come to find out, she's got a boyfriend. And okay, well, you've got a boyfriend, fine. I can still be who I am for you if you'll let me. And then, their relationship's over, and we'd grown to such a point where, literally we're saying I love you to each other every day. So from my perspective, I'm in love and she's in love with me. And, yes, she has a boyfriend, but I'm not going to go beyond what's okay for me, in my position. I will, for all intents and purposes, I'll wait my turn. She and him, they broke up, and I waited maybe a week, 2.5, just regular conversation, normal, this, that, and the third, and then I addressed the elephant in the room. I said, hey, I know you're not with, old guy anymore. Is there room for me? Is there, a possibility that, we can have our thing or something? And then she dropped the bomb on me that, there had been a third guy this entire time that, I, I'm not privy to. So my whole world at that point, my whole love world at that point was just shattered. Here's someone who I, wanted to be with for literally a whole year of my life. You know, I blew past people that wanted to be in relationships with me. I, shut everyone out. I hyper focused on, being with you, and just to get, tossed to the side, you know, like I'm just fodder. And that kind of, brought my whole, like I said, it brought my whole world come crashing down. In hindsight, I figured, okay, well, I should have seen it coming because, for all intents and purposes, she's doing all of this with me and she's got a boyfriend. So how can't you expect it to happen to you in some capacity? But again, in my mind, it was just me she was doing it with. There was no other, there was no other guy. There was no other anything else to, throw into the equation. So that's where like a lot of the themes about love and heartbreak and interpersonal relationships, come into play. And hell, it's crazy because I'm married now, right? I'm married. I have a wonderful wife. I'm happily married, and I don't want to be with anyone else, but her. But I find myself, in situations where I I don't know how to interact. I don't know how to social. I don't know how to be, myself around, someone of the opposite sex, so to speak, without feeling like, you only want me around for this, or, I'm only good enough to be around because of X, Y, Z, and ABC. In my life, I've lost a lot of friends, low level maturity. And I can't sit here and, try to paint a picture about how I was a saint, because I wasn't, but I think primarily what made my music career, what made me blossom into the artist that I am today, really, really is all of the, dramatic moments of my life. And I just find some way to take from those themes, take from those personal experiences, and translate them into the lyrics for these songs. This particular project is, like you said, it is me at my most vulnerable I've ever been in my life with anybody. So it was really just fighting with myself and fighting against all of the things that I've been through to create it and put it in a position of I can be happy about this as an artist as well as a person just listening to it. Getting to that point was probably the most difficult because it took a lot of substance dependency. A lot of what went into the album, it didn't really start happening or taking form or shape until my mom passed away. And there were a lot of nights where I'm sitting up just drinking. I'm sitting up, smoking weed, or doing something, anything to feel something other than numb, feel something other than depressed, feel something other than, hurt or sad, to get through making this song, or at the very least producing the music behind it, and then writing to it, and then figuring out how does this all play a part in this grandiose thing that I'm trying to do for people. The funny part actually about the album is that it didn't really take the shape that it's in now until about maybe 3 months prior to actually releasing it. So had I not had a inspirational spark from an outside source, Underground Heart 100% would not sound the way that it does. It would not be what it is without that other influence. So even now, knowing what I know and knowing how I felt all this time with making this album, getting through it all, I call it a cathartic release because that's exactly what it is. And that's exactly what it was. It was just it was so refreshing. It was so weight relieving to finally be done with feeling it all, with slogging through all of the depression, all of the grief, all of the everything, all of the dependency, all of the negativity to get it done. So now, great, let's move on to something else. Now that we're not sad anymore, now that we're kind of sort of happy, now that we're on this side of the fight, let's go do something else or not. Let's just take some time to recoup, to rejuvenate, and just, figure out what we want to do next.
When it comes to you as a musician, you're really like you're an entire package when you think about Kaesevyn is a rapper, songwriter, like you produce your music. You're kind of almost like a director when you think about some of the theatrical components of your new album that you just released in February. And I know that getting to where you are today, there is so many personal obstacles you had to overcome. But then there's this whole other like side to things of just being in the showbiz world.
It's definitely been eye-opening. A lot of people, they kind of I'm subject to it too, and I'm a victim of it too, but you kind of come in, with these rose-colored glasses on, and you see all of the glitz, the glam, you see all of the opportunity, and you think, the sky's the limit. But then when you move into a space in a mindset of wanting to do this professionally, you learn very quickly that, this business is 100% a revolving door. And if you do not, get out of the rotation, at the right stops, then you're going to be stuck there. Right. So what I mean by that is, it's very easy for someone, especially in today's world, to buy a pair of headphones with a microphone attached to it and download an app and make a little doot doot on their phone and put some words to it and, make a song that way and put it out. Right. It's very easy for anyone to call themselves a songwriter, a rapper, a producer, a this, a that. It's very easy for someone nowadays to call themselves an artist. But the experience that I've had doing this entire time, so I've actually been, making music. I officially call it, 14 years. I've been officially releasing music since 2018, but I always, say that I got my start in 2010. So being a part of the industry for that long and trying to navigate, the various ins and outs, like I said, you learn very quickly, what to do, what not to do, what's acceptable, what's unacceptable. And then you find your footing. So I want to say maybe like a year and a half, close to 2 years in, honestly. You find your footing, and then, you start to see different opportunities present themselves. Excuse me. And then you start to see, other like-minded individuals, going for the same opportunities you do. And then you're presented with a choice of, well, do I want to treat this like it's dog eat dog, or do I want to be someone who is, like a team player? Hey, we can all kind of do this together. We don't necessarily have to be in a music group, but we can all kind of get to where we want to be if we did it together. So my experience with the music industry is one of pure necessity. And what I mean by that is a lot of the opportunities that you would think are presented to everyone just because, right? A lot of that, is really, a fabrication. So, just like if you wanted to be an actor or if you wanted to get a high paying job corporate America or anything like that. Well, you've got to go audition for it. You've got to go prove to, those on your level and then the level right above you that you're worth your salt, doing this. Like I said, you try to go find your footing. You try to, find all of the opportunities that are out there. And you have this inkling in your mind that there are opportunities out there, but, how visible are they, right? Like how easy is it to go, to a Starbucks and see that they've got posted on a bulletin board, hey, there's an open mic happening 2 or 3 nights from now. You know what I mean? Opportunities like that where you've got to go put the footwork in and go find it yourself. The opportunities that I've had personally and the experiences that I've had just in the industry alone, they mainly come from instances where I took everything into my own hands and said, hey, well, I'm not getting placement for shows. I'm not on anyone's playlist. I'm not anywhere notable, in my career. And it sucks because I've been working my ass off. So after a while, I just kind of got fed up and frustrated and said, well, screw it. If no one wants to reach out, if no one wants to do this, if no one wants to, present the opportunity to me, and here I am standing on Front Street, waving my hands and, flagging people down like I'm a fucking maniac, excuse my language, but let me do it myself. So we put on, when I say we, me and my wife, actually, before she was my wife, we scrounged up together, some money, and we put on our own show, and we, booked out the venue, bought the DJ, bought the amenities that were there, and, booking other performers and, running down, the paperwork and just going through and saying, hey, this is what I expect a professional show to look like and be like. But then there was a double-sided benefit to it because a lot of the other artists that, we booked for the show, had been going through the same kind of, opportunity blocks, that I had been. So I said, well, what better way to, do for those who have been standing by me this entire time and do for myself than to, do this show and give them a taste of, what I call a higher standard. So that way, hey, man, when you make it, or hey, when you make it, or when you make it, this is the way that I believe it should be done. You should never, agree to do something if you haven't read the contract or if no one sat down and went through the paperwork with you. You know what I mean? Because too often we see situations where, a young artist in the music industry is, they're on fire, they're on a roll, and God, that's all anyone can ever talk about. Or that's the only person anyone can ever talk about for like the whole year. But then you see the year after or in the months after how they kind of just fade into oblivion or they fade into obscurity. Well, that's because 9 times out of 10 says, whoever sat them down with this contract in front of them didn't explain to them properly, what was in this contract. And the person, sitting down who was supposed to sign it probably didn't have good representation, with them to say, hey, this is a contract that you want, or you need to renegotiate this, or you need to walk away from this because this is not going to benefit your career in the long run. A lot of the strategy, a lot of the influence for the business side of making music, I actually get from watching, artists from these major labels. The artists that I grew up listening to, I sit down and I'll listen to them when they're in these interviews and they're talking about their come up. They're talking about what happened. They're talking about these different situations that they've been through, the ups, the lows, the downs, the losses and everything. And I'll take notes and I'll sit there and I'll study what they're saying because, well, hey, it worked for you. I don't see why I can't take what happened to you in that particular situation, take the important notes from it, and then keep it in my back pocket. So that way I can be prepared in the event that I find myself in the same situation. And then that's when it comes full circle for the performance that we booked for the show, in that I want to make you guys aware of this is what you should expect when things blow up for you, right? So that way you're not the dumbest person in the room and no one's trying to take advantage of you. And, you're not in a situation where you've never seen a performance contract before. You've never seen these meetings happen like this. You've never been a part of this. I want to go ahead and say, hey, here's your experience, because this is probably what they're going to do to any of us when we get there. And I don't want anyone here at this meeting, I don't want anyone here at this paperwork signing to be ignorant or to be vulnerable to someone who can come in and, do damage to your career, because this is what we all want to do. And I would be remiss if I didn't do, everything in my power to prepare you guys as well as prepare myself for what could potentially be, the biggest move of our lives up to this point.
You describe yourself almost as like transforming into the big brother in a way, even though when we kind of go back to the beginning of our conversation, we were talking about, hey, like, what was it like for Kay being the youngest in his family? Because you've had these experiences over the last 14 years and you've picked up a few things. And so you're, almost being a mentor to others who are up and coming in the industry and, looking out for others, which I think is so amazing. I think back to some of the, part of the album and, one particular, I'm going to call it a scene, if you will, because I think the entire like track, it was part of the theatrical element of your album. And, I remember, it was you and two of your, I'm going to say friends. I'm not really kind of sure exactly what their relationship are to you, but, there was an opportunity for you to take advantage and go perform. And, you were kind of feeling insecure and they were pushing you on and saying, how can you not take advantage of this? You kind of, they might have used some colorful language to kind of edge you on, but I'm just wondering, kind of your experience in the industry. I imagine that there are probably many times where you experienced imposter syndrome and maybe felt as if, you weren't supposed to be where you are. Probably felt like you maybe got kicked a lot of times with rejection. And so that probably aided in, am I actually cut out to be an artist? Am I ever going to make it and make a name for myself? Is Kaesevyn ever going to be, just a name that slips off the tongue? And so I'm wondering, kind of reflecting on your experience, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
I'll throw you a lifesaver here real quick. Just going off of what you built, just right there. The inspiration for that particular scene was, just as it was explained in the scene, you have this opportunity to go and remind people of who you are and, remind people of your skill set and your ability to do this. Why wouldn't you take the opportunity? And it's me wrestling with, I'm just not feeling it. I'm just not secure in my ability to go perform, which has happened, several times. Specifically, the last time it's happened, this past year, in the capacity of just being the host MC for an event, I had to talk myself down from having a panic attack because it was the first time that I'd been on stage with a mic in my hand for over a year and a half. And, getting on stage in any capacity is, to me, it's like riding a bike. You never forget how to do it. It had just been so long since I had done it, and I've changed so much and had been through enough that the adrenaline that was starting to surge in me to get me prepared for being on stage was just kind of overwhelming because I hadn't experienced it, in such a long time. So that scene in particular is just me wrestling with the insecurity of, am I even going to be able to go on stage and do this? Not that I don't want to, not that I, am inhibited in any way of getting on there and doing it, but am I going to be good enough? Are people going to like it? Are people going to welcome me? Are people going to give a damn? Are people going to care? And then on the other side of that coin, there's a question, but at what cost, right? How much of myself do I have to give, or how much of my comfortability, I will call it, do I have to give up in order to get people to understand that this is where I'm at? And how badly is that going to affect my ability to do it in the first damn place?
Hi, my wonderful goat friends. Firstly, thank you so much for your support and listening. If you're enjoying this conversation and other episodes of the podcast, I'd like to ask you to please give us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple, or whichever platform you are listening on right now. And if you're so inclined, we love to hear your feedback in a full review. Also, might be a great idea to hit subscribe on that platform you're listening to right now so you can get notified of new episodes as they are released. Thank you so much again for being one of our loyal GOAT listeners.
I don't know if this has been a thing for you or not, but
Fire away.
do you at all personally think that being in this industry, being a person of color, has had any impact on you getting to where you are?
I am such a lover and an appreciator of music as a whole. To me personally, I don't give a damn if you're white, you're black, you're Asian, Hispanic, Indonesian, wherever it is that you come from, whatever it is that you do, whatever you identify as, man, woman, transgender, whatever. To me, that has nothing to do with your ability, your skill set, your identity as a music artist. To me, that it means absolutely nothing. I don't care. I've grown up, in predominantly Black neighborhoods, and I'm the only one there trying to make music. I've gone to predominantly, white demographic shows, and they don't give a shit that I'm Black. They care about whether or not your music, is good or not. You know what I mean? And to me, diversity is a wonderful fucking thing, especially when it comes to music. But I don't feel in my bones and in my soul that the color of my skin, my ethnicity has anything to do, and this is just me, it has nothing to do with where I'm at musically or the impact or the effect that I as an artist have on the music industry. I feel that your merit alone should be considered based on your character and the quality of music that you put out. I refuse to just be an artist who's in a box of, I'm just going to do rap for all of my life. I would love to step out and, just, do pop. I would love to do rock, indie, folk, world techno, R&B, whatever. Like, to me, it doesn't matter, because music at the end of the day is that, it's music. People are going to love it, or they're going to hate it, or they're going to be indifferent. And as long as we're putting our best foot forward to give those who are seeking it quality music, something to listen to, something they can resonate with, something that they can relate to, it shouldn't matter what the hell we look like. It shouldn't matter where we come from or where we're trying to go or what we identify as. None of that should even matter. It should matter, how good is your music. It is challenging at times because, the perception is that what I get all of the time, even today, when you tell someone you're a rapper, or when you tell someone that you make music, right, they automatically assume, and they have this preconceived notion, I bet you do this, or I'm willing to bet that your music sounds like this over here. And you wouldn't necessarily be wrong for thinking that, because that's what's popular. That's what's trendy. That's what everyone else is doing. But what offends me really, really is the unwillingness of this person asking me what my music is like, the unwillingness to take a listen for yourself and see for yourself that I don't try to sound like anyone else. I don't try to copy or ride trends or, do this or that just for the sake of getting popular. No, I make music because that's what I love. And it just so happens that I talk about myself, and I talk about the things that I've been through, and I talk about the things that I think about, existentially in music. And I've never been the type of person, because there's a lot of like trap influence, and there's a lot of, negative stereotypes that come with the territory, unfortunately. But I've never once made a claim to be that type of person, or to run in those types of circles, or to judge those who have come from those types of situations or those types of circles or from that lifestyle. I'm not going to sit here and judge you for it, but I'm also not going to do it or be envious of someone else doing it just because that's what's popular. This image, this persona, this facade, if you will, that if you're going to be a great rapper, if you're going to be a good whatever, you've got to do this. You've got to go to jail. You've got to, have some kind of criminal charge on your record. You've got to have a this. You've got to have a that. You've got to come from here. You've got to look this way. You've got to look that way. I refuse to be a part of that because, well, I've got a wife that loves me, and I have 2 children to raise. And I cannot live a lifestyle, or I can't talk about living a lifestyle, one, that I just don't. And 2, I don't want my kids growing up thinking that that shit's okay, because it's not. Inherently, like the way, rap works, specifically, most of the time when you make music, you're relating to the world what you see out of your bedroom window. You are, for all intents and purposes, a product of your environment. So if your environment is shitty, it's going to reflect in in the things that you write. However, I don't look at the outside world, even though I'm so introverted, I don't look at the outside world as such a threatening place, dilapidated dystopia, so much so that, for lack of better phrasing, my family, we're in the trenches. We're not in the trenches. You know what I mean? I say we're doing pretty well for ourselves. It could be better, could always damn be better, but it's not like things are so bad that I've got to resort to drug dealing or pimping or, doing, just being a part of illegal activities. I don't have to resort to that. I can just go to work and pay my bills and then come home and love on my kids, love on my wife, and then go make a beat or make a song or, you know what I mean? Just anything like that. I don't have to live or be a part of this lifestyle that is oh so popular with people now just for likes, just to have you guys accept me or know who I am. I'd rather you get to know me the right way by saying, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. And this is how I want you guys to like me or grow respect for me. Not all of this stuff over here that I couldn't be even if I wanted to.
It's so nice actually just to find a new musician who is open to embracing their whole self and not compromising that for society or for, a big record deal or anything like that.
And, it's funny that, you mentioned that actually, because it reminds me the worst piece of advice musically that I'd ever received. My vocabulary had has always been extensive, and I kind of pride myself on, being able to string along these multisyllabic words into, the raps that I have. The worst piece of advice I'd ever gotten, come from my brother. I'm having trouble, getting on beat. I'm having trouble staying in tune with, with what we're doing. And he asked me, he said, why don't you just say something shorter, smaller, find a shorter word for what you're trying to say, because the people listening to this are going to know that shorter word better than they're going to know the bigger one. And I remember, responding to him saying, if they don't know what I'm saying, that's not my problem. I am not a thesaurus. I'm not a dictionary. I am not a teacher. I'm just a guy trying to make music. And if I just so happen to use the word esoteric and someone's on the other end listening and they don't know what esoteric means, it would make sense to just go Google the word, go look up the word so you'll know what I'm saying. And then you'll have the context of what I'm saying in this rap. But it's not my job to dumb down what I'm trying to say just so more people will listen. I refuse to do that. Again, it's not my job to educate you on what I'm trying to say. Maybe I'm trying to paint this picture this way so that you're more invested by what I'm saying. You don't know what I'm talking about. You don't know these words that I'm using. So maybe once you go find out what these words mean and then come back to the song and listen to it again with the right context, it'll hit you different. It'll hit you better. You'll be that much more invested because, oh, I know exactly what he said. Oh, I know exactly what he's talking about. At the end of the day, and this is what I truly feel, as a music artist, and, I want a lot of people to listen to me one day. I want, a huge fan base, just like everyone does. But, if there are people that refuse to listen to me because of the vocabulary that I have, that's their problem. That's completely on them. It is their prerogative. It's their choice. I'm not going to sit and force no one to listen to my music. I'm not going to, be upset that some people don't listen to it.
I agree. And I think one, it's kind of a double standard for you or other folks to be expected to dumb down music. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big advocate for accessibility and making sure that everyone can understand what's being said so that they can relate to it, and just making music and art accessible. I'm a
Right.
big fan of that.
Absolutely.
However, I do think that takes away from the authenticity again. And I think that who you are is, you're not intentionally saying Paul, let me go and sound like I spent 10 years at Yale and
Exactly.
you're not intentionally this.
I don't have a literary degree. I'm not doing this just to screw with you guys. This is just how I genuinely talk.
Yeah.
I 100%, the way that I write my rap, the way that I write my songs, you will hear me go from, shorthand speech to, multisyllabic words in the very next sentence. That is just how I naturally talk to people.
I think the other thing, well, yes, so kind of that double standard. I don't even think that this would be a conversation if we were talking about a white artist.
Not at all. We would, we'd be talking about how, that white artist fits into the realm of whatever this is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's to me, and that's the unfortunate thing, because again, diversity is a beautiful thing. And I feel like anyone of any background should be able to make music if they want to. If that's their heart's passion, if that's their dream, go for it. Shoot for the stars. I feel like it is stupid and immature and just completely unnecessary to take an artist of a certain color or a certain origin or a certain background out of the conversation just because of what they look like or just because of where they come from. I think it's stupid. You should, you should definitely rate them on a scale utilizing only the merit of their work ethic, right? How hard do they work? How much time do they put into their craft? How much skill do they actually possess to do this? How good are they, right? Are they selling? Are they popular? Are they this? Are they that? If the answer to those questions are yes, then that's all that should damn matter. That to me, that is all that should matter in any capacity. Everything beyond that is just opinion.
100% agree. I do think the beauty of who you are and how you let that come out in your music, though, is that, traditionally songwriters, rappers who look like you and I do dumb things down, whether intentionally or unintentionally, because that's all they know. And I think the beauty of you being who you are and infusing that into your music and not shying away from that is that you're helping to elevate other people by quote unquote forcing them to expand their knowledge. And if they don't know a word, to go and look it up so that they can better understand what you're saying. And because of who you are too, you have that relatability and it's the representation. It's, oh, this isn't like just another white guy using big words and,
right.
like just trying to complicate things. It's
right.
this person looks like me and they're doing they're actually expressing themselves authentically and they're using these words and I don't know these words, but I now feel inspired to go and understand what he's saying.
My dad taught me how to play chess when I was younger. So a lot of the ways that I interpret things or think about things, to me it's often very much so like a chess game. My dad, he used to tell me you've got to be 10 moves ahead of your opponent. And the way that I look at things are, as follows, like, hey, to me, music is what I want to do for the rest of my natural born life. It doesn't matter if I'm on stage, behind the curtains, on the side, wherever I am. I am doing a disservice to myself, to music as a whole, to the people that listen to the music that I make, and the culture if I do not utilize the platform that I have to educate and uplift those who are willing to seek out what I have to offer. It should be considered a crime to not show people you can be an intellectual. You can be a geek, a nerd, a whatever. You can be whatever it is that you want to be and still do this and be great at it. You don't have to conform just to fit in. And fitting in was something that I struggled with, as a kid. But I realized after a while, well, screw them. If I have to fit in just to be, acknowledged, well, screw that. I don't want that. I'd rather be who I am, fit in where, get in where I fit in over here. You know what I mean? I would so much rather just be myself and just stay independent and just stay doing what I want to do. I'm just trying to be the catalyst for those who feel that they couldn't get a leg up on the competition even when they try. And I want for those listening now to know that you can get a leg up. You can be everything that they are and more. You can do whatever it is that you want to do as long as you play, by the rules. And the rules of this are, just do it right. Don't steal from no one. Don't plagiarize. Don't do this. Don't, as long as you respect others and their craft, they will respect you. And that's really the biggest, most important rule of this entire thing. It's not about whether you're stepping on toes or not, or rubbing someone the wrong way. It's just, giving respect where it's earned and then earning it yourself. So that way, when you go to do what you want to do, people are accepting of it like, yep, that's Seven, that's Kaesevyn, that's what he does. And he's damn good at it. Look at him go. You know what I mean? As opposed to, I don't know why he's doing that crazy shit over there. No one said that he could do that. No one told him to do that. I don't know what he's doing it for. You know, for me, I would just so much rather authentically be myself and show others that this is the best way to do it, as opposed to putting on and putting up a front for, just entertainment purposes, or just, for clout, or just for attention. I would so much rather do that, so that way people remember me for the right things, as opposed to remembering me for blowing up real quick with one song and then being gone in the next 6 or 7 months.
I'm very particular about the people I bring on the show because I really want to stay true to my mission and my vision. So I think you and I definitely have that in common when it comes to just kind of staying true to ourselves and not really being tied to this like influencer mentality or this like super fame mentality, even though it would be awesome if we could reach those statuses.
Super awesome, but I wouldn't, even for as great as it would be, and for as honored and grateful as I would be to reach that point, it wouldn't mean anything to me if it didn't come from a place of, I earned this.
Mm-hmm. The name of this podcast is called Not Your Average Goat. I don't know if you follow any sports yourself, Kay, or not. I'm a big sports fan, especially when it comes to football. So the GOAT is for the greatest of all time term that's often used for people like Tom Brady, and like if you follow soccer, like Lionel Messi or Michael Jordan, if you follow basketball, but so that's kind of like what the GOAT part stands for, and that's where it does derive from. And so everyone I bring on this show, I do see as like a not average GOAT and someone who I think that others should know about. And so one thing I like to close the show by asking my guest is, who or what kind of like an experience or moment in time has been your GOAT? So kind of like your inspiration or your motivation for getting you to where you are today.
I alluded to it, earlier in the conversation, that there was an outside source, of inspiration that helped me formulate and really like drive home what Underground Heart was. And that was actually my GOAT, my inspiration for really like wanting to do this music thing and be just unapologetically who I am. Andre 3000, one half of the greatest hip hop duo of all time, Outkast. He has been, to me, he is my idol. He is my hero. He is my everything when it comes to music. If I were to ever get a chance to shake his hand, I would probably faint. I would fangirl so hard. I'm not playing. But his most recent album, New Blue Sun, when they made an announcement that he was going to be releasing music, I put everything that I was doing on hold until that album came out and I could take a listen to it, because I grew up listening to Jesus Christ, AT-Aliens, Aquemini, Southern Playalistic Cadillac music. I grew up listening to every single line, every single word that these guys wrote and performed. And I can't to this day think of anyone else who is as big of an influence on my music or the way that I write or produce or anything like that, other than Andre specifically. His new album, New Blue Sun, did for me what I felt I needed the entire time I was making, music as a whole, it showed me that you can be a music artist and do whatever it is that you want as long as you're happy with it. And the things that because not most people, realize or remember about Andre in the last few years, he lost his parents, right? So he lost his stepfather, his mom, he lost his father when he was younger. And a lot of, just his upbringing, I really relate to, and it really resonates with me because just on a level of you understand loss like I understand loss, and I understand loss like you understand it. So if for no other reason, that's why I kind of cling and idolize him so much, because in a small, very, very, very small sense, I feel like in a way I'm like you in that this is what I do, this is who I am, and this is what I've been through. And these are the things that I want to do. So when he dropped the album, for a long time, he had been, at least from my perspective, in such a depression that he, in interviews, he's saying, I don't know if I'll ever make a music album again. I don't know if I'll ever be able to do this. I don't know. I want to, but it's just not there. And every time I try to go to do it, it feels like I'm forcing myself into the hot seat. And I don't want it to be that, because then it's not going to sound good when I put it out. So after listening to his album and getting a fresh perspective of what I needed to do for my album as a whole, that just it brought out of me a sense of stop overthinking everything. You don't need to do X, Y, Z, and ABC. You don't need to find a way to cater to anyone. You don't need to do. You just need to finish. We need to get to the finish line, and you keep moving the goalpost every single time. Stop it. We're going to give ourselves this much time to get this finished. And if we don't finish, well, then it sucks because, we should have worked harder. But we're not going to keep feeling sorry for ourselves. We're not going to keep on with this depression. We're not going to keep on, living like, we're looking for a pity party. We're going to get this finished. We're going to get it done. We're going to put it out, and we're going to do what we need to do to get people to listen to it. And from there, everything for me, again, is just being cathartic. And it's just come so full circle for me that, I don't know what's next. And I don't know, when's the next time we're going to drop a project or whatever. But I do know that I'm a lot happier than I was when I first started making it. And I'm a lot happier now that people seem to be happy that I'm happy, if that makes sense.
That's awesome. And I can't wait to talk to you maybe in like a year or two and just see where you are and see how you've been able to impact other people just by being yourself and putting out music that's truly reflective of who you are and who your experiences are. So thank you. Just thank you for being who you are, but also thank you so much for just carving out time to come and talk to me on the show today.
The pleasure is absolutely all mine. You have no idea. So this is hands down one of the greatest opportunities that I've ever had in my life. And I'm not saying that just to suck up, just to be a brown nose. I genuinely mean that from the bottom of my heart. And my parents taught me to be grateful for everything, regardless of how minuscule or grandiose it might be. So the fact that you had time available in your schedule, and I know how busy you are, to sit down and have this conversation with me, to me is just the greatest gift that I could have received at any point this year. So thank you.
Not Your Average Goat is produced and edited by yours truly, with music by Sergey Quadrado and Anton Blazov. All content is copyrighted and should not be recreated, reproduced, or reused without explicit consent. Please visit notyouraverage.org/contact for questions.